When I was younger, my great-grandmother always told us the stories of her past. The days where she knew everyone's birthday without a Facebook notification. The days where families sat together by the television, watching excitedly as man stepped on the moon for the very first time. The days where a loaf of bread was only a few cents. I often find myself wondering what I take for granted that my children won't have. Unfortunately, I believe that I will find myself telling stories of the days when people weren't defined by their number of followers, the days when science was a profession and not something you read about in a history textbook, the days when a loaf of bread didn't cause a land war between Brazil and Chile. With this reality in mind, we propose the motion. This House believes that the present condition of humanity is preferable to its condition in 100 years' time. In this speech, I will provide key definitions in the first two substantive arguments, and David will provide our third substantive argument in the following speech. Now, for definitions, we define humanity as the totality of the human race, and condition as a state of well-being. Furthermore, we would like to set some burdens for this round. It is the burden of the proposition to prove that humanity's state in the present is more safe, more equitable, and more purposeful than its projected state in 100 years, and it is thus the burden of the opposition to prove the converse. Our first substantive argument is that the human race will breed self-destruction in the next 100 years. Irish poet Oscar Wilde once said that we create our own demons. As we continue to grow and consume, it is clear that the human race has become a time bomb. Our first layer is that the world is losing the war against climate change. By far, the biggest driver of climate change is large corporations. However, the powerful global fossil fuel industry totals $4.65 trillion in assets, and these businesses are thrilled to profit at the planet's expense. As such, they've shifted the blame with a narrative that individual action is key to addressing the issue, and have lobbied for less regulation and successfully swayed policy. Thanks to them, there has been no meaningful progress, and we will continue to pollute and destroy our planet. As a result of this carelessness, projected temperature increases will, according to the IPCC, lead to more catastrophic storms, floods, wildfires, and droughts for hundreds of millions of people, particularly those in already vulnerable areas. It is estimated that before 2120, desertification, rising sea levels, and extreme weather conditions will force 200 million people to leave their homes. In addition, the European Academy of Sciences estimates that heat waves will cause up to 132,000 deaths in Europe alone by the end of the century. Globally, humanity's slow descent into this fiery fate has already begun. From Seattle to Serbia, strengthening flames have claimed thousands of lives. Last year, climate-related factors resulted in the displacement of around 16.1 million individuals. In India and Pakistan, pre-monsoon temperatures led to 216 deaths and temperatures of 123 degrees. Unfortunately, the places hit hardest, the tropics and the subtropics, also tend to be the least developed, lacking both the healthcare and economic capacity to handle natural disasters. This vulnerability allows waterborne diseases like malaria to spread rapidly. Our second layer is that overpopulation leads to resource wars. 100 years from now, Earth's population will be roughly 11 billion. There will not be enough food or water in 100 years to accommodate the current population, let alone the projected population. The fishing industry has already engaged in the extermination of marine life, trolling and netting and industrially fishing the waters dry. Our soil faces a similar fate. Generating 3 centimeters of topsoil takes 1,000 years, and if the current rates of soil degradation continue, all of the world's topsoil could be gone within 60 years, leaving us unable to grow nourishing fruits and vegetables. Severe water shortages are ravaging countries like Yemen, starving both the land and the people of a vital resources. In some places, like the Pakistani-Indian border, conflicts over access to fresh water are simmering, just under a boil, verging on an all-out warfare that unleashes a quake across the world and ends in universal suffering. Perhaps the worst consequence of this warfare is an increase in both the size and the severity of the refugee crisis. Refugees are already abused and ostracized, and with both more refugees and fewer resources, their fate would be even more grim, creating destabilization and poverty for individuals that obviously don't deserve it. Layer 3 is that our machines will control us. Humans continue to pursue the development of artificial intelligence without careful consideration of the real dangers it presents. Most experts, regardless of whether or not they are optimistic, express the concerns about long-term impact of new tools on the safety and the prosperity of humanity. In the best case scenario, when companies produce AI, they will benefit from any future economic stimulus, creating more income inequality. The Federal Bank of St. Louis reports that automation increases the Gini coefficient because low-wage earners are easily replaced by automation and thus take a wage cut. But the worst case scenario is nothing short of a nightmare, as experts estimate that military artificial intelligence expenditures will grow exponentially. Should a military power like the United States, Russia, China, Israel, or the UK develop a stealth bomber that can fly itself and make decisions about where to drop bombs in a battlefield without human input, allows machines to decide our fate. The absence of human freedom creates a world that lacks responsibility and free will. We create a weapon that we cannot control. Our second substantive argument is that humanity will lose purpose within 100 years. Our first layer is that humanity will reach its apex of scientific discovery. Most researchers agree that the vast majority of scientific discovery will happen within the next 100 years. After that time, science will have reached a plateau, one where the next discovery is so distant it almost seems impossible. Renowned physicist and author Richard Feynman, in his book, The Character of Physical Law, argues that scientific study will eventually die because we find the remaining information too expensive and too uninteresting to pursue. The acquisition of new knowledge is a pillar of humanity's purpose, and without new discoveries, life will become monotonous and uninteresting. Learning and growing two fundamental principles of humanity will become a rarity. Our second layer is that the new media creates a lack of genuine personality and inhibits meaningful relationships. It has never in human history been easier to communicate with others, and yet our reliance on social technology rather than face-to-face interaction makes us feel isolated and disconnected. Our relationships are becoming more superficial and less rewarding. This loneliness increases mortality risk and contributes to poor mental health. Social media platforms have also given us the ability to hide behind screens, allowing others to judge us for the lives we want them to think we have, the lives that we portray online. Fake personalities and poor representation of reality prohibit real relationships and are meager substitutes for any type of genuine interaction. As our sense of self and our connection to others becomes deteriorated, so too does our humanity. The human race will be populated by stoic as opposed to complex individuals, and we will lose the foundation of what it means to be human. Because we prefer ambition to apathy, we are proud to propose the motion.